Hi there. I wanted to record a demonstration of the capability demo that I did for the Nintex World Tour Melbourne event. We've been looking through the feedback and a lot of people mentioned that they wanted to see more product. They wanted to see more of what the actual tool could do. So I'm going to use this opportunity to record and go through some of the things that I showed on the day and hopefully give you ideas for how this can relate to your business processes using Nintex. Any of the names, characters, businesses, places, events, and locales that I mention in the demo are either products of my own imagination or they're being used in a fictitious manner. Therefore, any resemblance to actual persons living or dead or actual events is purely coincidental. Alright, now the formalities are out of the way, let's kick things off. I'm in Crisco's Office 365 SharePoint Online Intranet. We've got Nintex forms and workflows installed. We've also got a Salesforce CRM deployment here. I'm going to generate an invoice which is going to go to an end customer for them to sign and return based on some insurance products that they want to procure. We're going to make some tweaks to the form and workflow on the way, as my business likes to introduce changes when they feel they are applicable. I want to show you how easy that is with the Nintex platform. And finally, we're going to close the loop with some analytics over the top of a workflow. Alright, let's get started. We're going to raise an order. So the first thing that we'll see here is Nintex Forms responsive view for the end user. This is the Nintex Forms responsive designer. If we resize this window, you can see things start to stack. And what I've also got is my mobile emulator on the side here. If we drag that in, this is essentially my view on my Android device of the same form. We haven't had to initiate any other layouts for this, it's simply picked up that view. So on load, the form does a few things for me. It's going to mask that PO. We're going to generate that using workflow and some rules that the business process actually has. We're automatically default picking up the logged in user into Office 365. But we're also looking into their user profile. We're bringing back values that we know about them that are being pulled from AD. I don't want my sales guys having to fill this in every time, so it makes sense for us just to autofill. Let's create a user. Richard Rowe from our Cefalo Realty vendor. Vendor email is an external Outlook address, so not part of Crisco's intranet. The job role there, well, he can be my procurement officer. Let's just make up a street address. Once we click off Melbourne, you'll see we're using a set field value rule there to default fill in the postcode because we know it. And let's add a random number, phone number. We're going to select some products using our repeating section control here. You'll see that it's automatically pulling in the cost associated to those products. That's using a calculated value control. And we're using the same control to update the grand total each time we add a new product. If we add a discount here, we're going to use some Nintex form variables to actually work out that calculation, not only for the discount amount based on the discount percentage from the RRP, but also deduct that from the RRP to the final total. Let's set my contract duration for 18 months. I'm going to add some notes that the multi-policy discount has been applied. That's ready to submit. And you'll see it's picked up an error. I've got a little rule in there that says that the phone numbers must be in a specific format. And let's submit. Now, as part of that form design, we've set a little redirect on that submit button to take me back to the home page here so I can see my workflow tasks that I may need to respond to and any of the invoices that have been generated. None have been generated thus far. Let's jump back to my list and you'll see the workflow's already kicked off. It's done a few things in the background. Set the title of that item based on the vendor name and the PO number. set that PO number based on the list item ID that we've got. And if we scroll along to my contract end date, it's picked up the start date and my 18-month duration, and it's set that as the end date. I don't want my sales guys opening a calendar and having to work out when the end date of that contract is. So business has approached us and they'd quite like to make some changes. They want to add an approvers column to the form. So we open up Nintex Forms Designer from the ribbon. We've already created that list column approver, but it's as simple as finding where we want that to go on the actual page, dragging that control into the responsive designer, and double clicking for any configuration. And we can set rules on that control as well, any validation that's required, and any appearance. If we want to set the default value, we get access to that reference area, and we can pull in a specific value. And we won't do that for approver. We want people to use the people picker to actually set that next level approver. My form is already responsive, so that's what makes it available on the end user mobile phone. But if I want to promote this to the Nintex mobile app, it's as easy as selecting a checkbox. So my workflow is kicked off in the background. Set the initiation event just to simply be when an item is created. And the first thing that my workflow will do is it's going to create an account in Salesforce for my vendor. How we do that is we're going to do a handoff to Nintex Workflow Cloud to query that Salesforce environment, figure out if that account already exists. If it doesn't exist, we need to create it. If it does exist, we're simply adding a note to the account. Let's check on my accounts. And we've got Cephalo Realty, which has been created. If we jump into the account name, we've got Richard Rowe, who's been created as a contact with all of his details, and we're set the customer account as a prospect. They haven't signed anything, they're not on as a customer yet. So let's carry on with the workflow. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to initiate a task. That's going to go to that approver or the sales team or whoever you decide as part of workflow that goes to. And we've got a few options here around responding. We can respond with comments and use our Microsoft Actionable Message to respond. Or we can simply select reply to this email with one of the keywords that we have selected. What we're doing as part of workflow is we're generating an escalation date and time for that task to be responded to, and it will automatically escalate to a lineup manager or whoever we've decided in that task action. Let's approve in this instance, and that's going to move that workflow process through for me. Now again, the business have asked me to make some changes to the workflow. They want this to be a two-stage approvals process. So they want to add a legal approvals area. So we can do that by adding a state machine in workflow. Again, it's drag drop. We need to configure my state machine now to have two different levels of task. So the first level is going to be the sales task, and the second is going to be the legal task. And we're going to set this to begin with the sales task. I'm going to drag that sales task into the sales task branch. We're going to add a second task for legal. And we're going to set the states to decide what happens when they're either approved or rejected. So if sales approve the task, we're going to set the next stage to go to legal. If sales reject the task, we're going to just terminate this workflow completely. Once it hits legal, if they approve, we're going to exit the state machine, so we're going to carry on. However, if legal reject, we want to send that task back to sales. So let's just copy that action, paste that in. I'm going to send that to sales. So we're going to stay in this loop until legal are completely happy with, and both sales and legal are happy with things, and we're going to move on to set that workflow status as approved, and we're going to send that to the customer. So what we've now done is we've approved that task, but we're going to generate a unique piece of documentation for this instance. So let's take a look at that before it's gone to the customer. So we've got our front cover here, insurance product pack for Cephalo Realty. We've picked up the vendor name. We've also picked up the date and time that that document was created. Here's my order form with some unique information about that running instance: the purchase order number, the vendor name, the address, the products they selected, the cost, and also some notes. And what we've asked it to do is add 3 specific product information packs, and we've added some styling to the inserted tag for vendor name. 1, 2. Okay. So if we take a look at my workflow and my document generation action, we've got the ability to generate a single PDF from up to 20 templates. We're pulling those templates from SharePoint Online, then we're deciding if there's a condition upon which they're going to be included in my finalized pack. Now if you take a look at my product information packs here, they're all based on a condition, and that condition is being whether that product was selected as part of the initiation form. So does my current item contain my commuter cover product? If so, it will add that to the pack. If not, it's going to simply skip. Now if we select tag document here, on my purchase order template, which was page 2 of my output, we're going to see how those unique workflow values are actually brought into the template when that action is executed. It will allow you to bring in a PowerPoint file mixed with Word document file, even Excel, into a finalized output. So they don't all have to be the same extension. If I drag in my purchase order template here, you see anything within these chevrons is actually just a unique value that gets added when the workflow action runs. We've got our table being generated, all of our vendor information, and it's simply pulled from the item properties tags here on the right. If I want to add something new into my template, it's as easy as finding the tag and selecting. If I want to add some styling to that specific tag, again, you can just add that. We've done that for the vendor name in those product information packs. I won't save that. Set our output file name. I've generated this as a variable elsewhere, and the output location. So that workflow is carried on. It's generated that document that we just saw, and it's exited to Adobe Sign. So let's take a look at that next stage. If I drag in my Outlook email address. So Adobe have packaged up that document that we've asked it to, and it's going to add that electronic signature component. Let's click to sign and apply. Let's accept the terms and conditions from Adobe Sign. Now it's going to send a copy of that signed document back to me as the customer. It's also going to send that as a signed copy back to my SharePoint Online intranet. So we can now open up that PDF. We now have the signature in place. And if we check the email, we've closed with an email that has been returned and signed. So in the matter of space of 15 minutes, we've raised an order form with some unique products selected. We've passed that to a customer as a document to electronically sign. And the last thing that we've done is we've actually updated that Salesforce account now that they've returned that signed document to me. If I now check the details for Cephalo, they're now customer direct, and we've done that all via workflow. Now, the last thing that I wanted to show was some analytics that correspond to a workflow like this for contract management. We're exposing these values using our Nintex Hawkeye process intelligence lens, essentially visualizing this process to the stakeholder or those that need to know more information about what's actually happening within that workflow. So we built some custom dashboards based on the item properties that are being exposed by those new workflow actions called beacons. And we're actually able to gate this process. We're able to say we've got a number of distinct stages within the process, and what we'd like to do is know more about what's going on in those more granular levels and layers. So we've got a stage 1, which is contract draft, and we've got a stage 2, which is contract review. Within contract review, we've got 2 sub-stages, similar to our sales and legal tasks. But what we've asked Hawkeye to do is report on the numerical values in dollars that sit within those sub-levels. And we can see if it's at a pressing time of the year, such as end of quarter, end of month, or financial year, exactly where the money lies within my process. Now we can skin this by different contract types and any other values that the workflow is able to expose. If we take a look at the duration aspect of the workflow, this is now going to allow us to focus on specific areas of the workflow that need optimized. We can take a look at this, quickly see that review stage 1 seems to be the biggest lag in my process. If I select that, it's going to show me exactly which contracts values are sitting within review stage 1. As the contract manager, this is where we'd focus my improvement attention. I'd be interviewing those line managers, I'd be interviewing those department heads, or whoever's responsible for that review stage 1 to figure out what is the issue that's causing them to take almost 8 days to actually review these tasks. It may well be that they are field service work or they're out from the office, but we haven't given them the capability to respond and review while they're mobile. Now essentially we could use Nintex Mobile for that. If we start to take a look at some of the other dashboards that we've created, the ability to visualize on maps where these processes are. If we enumerate through SLA values as well, again, we can see that review stage 1 is the issue here. That's where we're going to focus our attention. And as we pull other values out from the workflow, we will create those visualizations based on any of the metadata that Nintex Hawkeye beacons have access to. We could have an upcoming meeting with the Law Brothers company. We've got some SLA and some contract amount metrics in place with them, and we can have that discussion easily using the dashboard. Thank you very much for joining me on this brief overview of the demo that I did.